we are today in such a backdrop, a power trade agreement between India and Nepal, I think is our requirement rather than our neighbors. So the issue, I think, is not whether we should do or not, we should not do it. The issue is how best we can tailor the PTA agreement so that is beneficial for both countries. I now would like to call upon Bishal Thapa ji, who is Vice Chairman of EDC and working with Lotus Energy. He has comprehensive knowledge and experience, and of course a lot of regional and international insights on the various development issues, and he has worked with international consulting company, and he was based in Delhi for quite some time. So now I would like to call upon Mr. Bishal Thapa to moderate the discussion session.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste. Welcome. यहाँलाई त सबैलाई थाहा होला नेपाल भारत विद्युत व्यापार सम्झौताको एउटा चर्को विषय भएको छ. The subject of great controversy. Everybody has an opinion and different opinions. If you look around this room, there's probably be as many different opinions as there are people. In fact, most political parties probably have two opinions. One when they are in government and one when they are outside of government. Experts have as many opinions as they have reporters. But if you step back a little bit, the Nepal-India power trade agreement basically boils down to like a Bollywood film affair, a love affair. Amir Gharana ko keti, Garib keta, prem, the parents don't agree. The whole premise of the film is not that the love affair is in dispute. That is never the subject of the film. The two people are in love and they should get married. That's the whole point of the film. But the question is, every few minutes there's a new obstacle in the film. Something comes up and they just can't do it. And you think, now they're about to get married, and boom, there is an uncle that comes up from somewhere or an auntie who says, no, this can't happen. Our Nepal-India power trade agreement is kind of like that. We know it has to happen, but it's obstacles after obstacles after obstacles. But at the end, all movies, Sapai Chalchitra has to come to an end. But our movie has been going on for 20 years. Almost 20 years ago, we signed an agreement between ministers to get a power trade agreement. And today, our delegation is now in Delhi trying to hammer out an agreement. So, will it be the end of a beautiful love story that comes to a wonderful conclusion like Bollywood? Or will it be one of the harsh realities of life where we realized some love affairs are just not meant to happen? So to address that question, I have three excellent speakers that are going to unravel and give you the answer. So let me introduce them one by one. Mr. Hitendra Shakya. Mr. Shakya brings with him tremendous experience and a long experience in working with the Nepal power sector. But he's one of the personalities that probably has a better pulse of what Indian prices and what power markets are doing than many traders in India. The second guest I'd like to invite is Dr. Sandip Shah. Dr. Shah has has watched this sector in Nepal across many decades, across many policies, across many prime ministers, across many governments, and if I may say so, across many journalists as well. He's weathered it all. I think there are two things that he knows: how to generate and how to make a business out of generating from hydroelectricity. So I'm very pleased to welcome him. My third guest, Mr. T.N. Thakur. Mr. Thakur has played a very key role in transforming the Indian power sector when it was in the hands of government. I think he's single-handedly credited with starting the Indian power markets, with bringing trade and with building a company that is one of the leading power trading companies in the world. I think one of the things you will notice today is that as I gave you these introductions, I didn't offer you, as most of these conferences do, where they are from and what is their actual designation. Because today I speak to them not really as a member of their industry or a particular company, but really I think just as citizens of both the countries. And what they have promised me is two things. They'll talk either from their heart or from their minds. So it's up to you to decide which they end up talking through. But those are the two things that they're going to be talking about. So in that respect and in the context of that conversation, what I would like to suggest is that I think the questions that is directed at them also be directed with taking the issues in mind rather than focusing on the specific companies that they represent. Sakiji, if I can start first question with you. A very simple but I think quite a loaded question. Why is India so important to Nepal? It'll always be a big country, it'll always be a neighboring country. We've had power that flows from India to Nepal for a long time. But why is it that India is now like the center of our gravity in terms of trying to think about our future for power development? Why is India so important?
First of all, Nepal's power sector is now getting dominated or predominant the private sector. Presently it's 40%, and it is expected that the share of the power energy of the private sector is going to go high. That's one part. And second part, we are completely 100%, almost 100% solar is not there. Most of them is river based. So our hydrology is such that we have excess power in the wet season and deficit in the dry season. So these two factors make it very important that we have the market in India rather than across. And that's why it is getting more and more relevant and very pertinent for us that we have PTA, power trade agreement, G2G level power trade agreement, so that the confidence of the investors, the private sector, will be there to invest in the power.
But what do you think, Mr. Thakur? You've been coming to Nepal for many years. I think almost every year in the last decade. And besides being a well-wisher of Nepal, what does India really want from Nepal in terms of hydro-sector development? What's India's interest?
Look, if you look back from the 50s on, India has been looking at Nepal's hydro sector for two reasons. One, mainly for the flood control, because the Nepalese rivers, not the Nepalese rivers, the rivers originating from Nepal are passing through India before it goes to the sea. And therefore, some parts of India get flooded, and India has been very worried about it. And I remember when I was Secretary to Chief Minister in Bihar, that was one of the main issues facing Bihar those days, and the Bihar Chief Minister wanted to meet the Prime Minister of Nepal and wanted to get to some solution to this. So that is one reason. The second is that hydropower, if you are able to control the flood affecting India, and if you are able to develop hydropower in Nepal, then what happens? That, as has been rightly said by Mr. Shakya, that your hydrology is such that the wet season you will have always surplus, and the dry season you will have deficit. So far, Nepal has been a net importer of power from India. And I don't see any reason why Nepal should be net importer. Actually, Nepal should be net exporter of power to India if the two countries work together. And therefore, India can always try to push the stable power, the base load power to Nepal and get the hydropower and peaking power whenever India has a peaking deficit. So that is another thing. But having said so, let me tell you that it's not important that India needs power or power should go to India. It's not important. What is important is that, like many countries have many natural resources, and Nepal has water as a natural resource. You have plenty of water, plenty of rivers, and therefore, for the development of Nepal, the hydro potential is to be exploited, and only when hydro potential is exploited, I think economic development in Nepal will take place. And only when you have surplus, then you push that to India, because India offers a market. And if you tomorrow, if there is SAARC great or SAARC market, you can push to any country in the SAARC region. So that is how it should be looked at. I must tell you one thing more, because I have been coming here for the last for 10 years. I came continuously from 2001 onwards, when we established Power Trading Corporation in India way back in year 2000. And I have a feeling, maybe I am wrong and I wish I am wrong, but I have a feeling that there is some amount of trust deficit between India and Nepal, not at the individual levels, but maybe at a different level. And therefore, I would be very keen that if this relationship gets strengthened through hydropower, I think that trust deficit will vanish, and then there will be more opportunity for the relationship between India and Nepal, and the two countries can work together. Having said this, if you permit me, I will say one thing more before you ask me further questions. As I said already, that's not important how much power you export to India. No, I had said way back in 2006 or 7, I forget, in Nepal when I was organizing the Power Summit, that by 2020, Nepal should be able to generate 10,000 megawatt of hydropower. And most of the people, very senior people in the audience, raised their eyebrows and said, can it be possible? So by 2020, at that time I had said 10,000 megawatt. Now it may be even less, because by 2020 is very near. So by 2020, if you are able to export even 5,000 megawatts to Nepal, by 2020, India will have a grid of 300,000 megawatts. So therefore, it will be important to get this 5,000 megawatt also to benefit India. I agree, but it's not so important for India to get this 5,000 out of 300,000 megawatt of power needs. If you get 5,000 from somewhere else. And secondly, let's not forget also that we have the same hydro potential in the Himalayan states of India. So therefore, let us not look it from the point of view of who is going to benefit. Let us try to exploit hydropower, because it is a resource for Nepal, and it will do good to both India and Nepal, and it will be a good bonding activity between India and Nepal, and that is how we should view it. And yesterday evening, when I was chatting with some of the Nepalese friends, I recalled one thing, and that also I would like to speak here, because as I said, I am speaking from heart. Therefore, I am not thinking whether I should speak or not. But I am speaking. And let me tell you, I was a bureaucrat in Government of India. I was a civil servant. I worked in Government of India for 40 years. I am not a government servant now. I am not a diplomat now. Therefore, I am an ordinary citizen of India. So, as an ordinary citizen of India, I can express any feelings without any handicap. So, what happened that I was in Shanghai and in a panel discussion, and somebody asked a question that China has developed so fast, why India is not developing? And one of the European participants remarked that is because there is too much of politics in everything in India. Too much of democracy in India, Too much of democracy in India. And we had on the panel, I was one of the panelists, and we had on the panel a former Minister of India, the leading journalist of India, a well-known journalist, and a very well-known economist from UK, of Indian origin. And so, the former minister and this journalist reacted very violently and said, what do you mean by too much of democracy? You have democracy or you don't have democracy. There is nothing like too much of democracy or too little democracy. But I intervened and said that what he meant was not too much of democracy. What he meant was too much of politics in everything in India. And I think Nepal also suffered from that. And I agree that there is too much of politics in everything in India, whatever you do, and there is too much of politics in everything in Nepal, whatever you do. And we suffer from that. Let us get over that. Let us get over that. Let us find a way forward, and I think it will be good for all of us.
So I think in the first two questions itself, you have a view of what is both the opportunity and also the type of challenges. But before I go on to the next question, I just want to clarify that I don't have a monopoly of all the questions in this session. So you are more than welcome to join me in asking questions at any point during the conversation. I'll obviously help to moderate the questions. So if you wish to ask a question at any point, just raise your hand and I guess the mic will come around. But while you're thinking about your question, let me ask Dr. Shah. I think, as I said, you heard the opportunities, big market, lots of resources, but challenging, overwhelming politics. You have to make money from generating power from hydroelectricity. If the PTA is there, how would you make money? What would you do that will suddenly change, that allows you to make money as a hydro business?
I think, hydropower is a very high risk investment, very high risk business. And, among all the other risks that we look at, one of the principal risks we try to analyze is the market risk. And yes, Nepal has a lot of resources on the hydro side, but there is a limited market within Nepal. And I think, given the state of affairs in Nepal right now, it's very, very difficult to do projects which have international investment, which are funded by international commercial banks and are financed literally on a project finance basis. And in order for us to look at the marketability of the power that we generate from our projects here in Nepal, we are in a situation where we only have the option of selling power to one entity, which is the state utility here in Nepal, NEA. We feel that there should be other options available for us to sell the power that we are generating. If we are allowed to sell to third parties within Nepal, if the power sector reforms are in place such that we can sell our power to third parties directly without having to go through the NEA, the utility medium, I think that would open up the market to quite an extent. More than that, if we have the access to India, and as we all know, India is a tremendous market. It's a very vibrant market. It's growing very rapidly. Yes, there's a lot of generation being added to the Indian system, but I think there is still a lot of scope for the hydropower from Nepal, principally because of the proximity to the load centers in Nepal, in India, and also the fact that if we can build some peaking possibilities in our power projects, we would be able to participate in the Indian electricity exchange market and better utilize the potential that we have. So yes, profit is not a bad word for me, and I always believe that we are not in the business of charity. We have to make money from whatever we are doing. We need to have the possibility of diverse markets within the country and outside of that also. And if it can happen through this power trade agreement, we will be, I think, one of the most happy, companies, or the entire private sector, I should say, would be very happy to have that opportunity to go to an alternate market. Now, one of the other key issue that we see besides the availability of markets is the risk of the counterparty where we are going to sell power. Currently, the counterparty risk here in Nepal is quite high. And that's why we need to have the possibility of selling power to other off-takers of power. And I think India provides us with that flexibility. So both in the near term as well as in the long term, we see that this opportunity is going to tremendously benefit.
One of the criticisms that you hear is that that's strange. I mean, we are at 160 kilowatt hours per capita, one of the lowest in the world. In the next 20 years, even if we're at like 300, we double that, our demand will be large, right? And with such a small amount of per capita, and electricity being an indicator of development, whereas in India, we're at like 750 already. How can there even be a notion that there isn't adequate demand? So if you look at it as a business, I mean, surely you have a sector, an economy that's growing. You have people that are consuming 150, and you know that is waiting to buy more television, more fridges, whatever, more industry. So why isn't this country where it should be focused in generating itself? Why do you need an alternate market?
I think, the ultimate goal would be to have at least 1,000 kilowatt hours per capita here also, or more. But we are not in that stage yet. And yes, we would love to be even at 300. But to get to that stage, we still have a long way to go. So we need to have not only the sector reforms in place, but we also need to have infrastructure to provide or to distribute this electricity to the end consumers. Now, I think, yes, there is a latent demand in the system which would really be appreciating any additional generation which is available in the system. But at the moment, we don't see that happening in the next 3 to 5 years. I've had a lot of debates with energy planners about what is the real requirement here in Nepal. Yes, we can definitely use a lot of power in Nepal. But because of the seasonality of power generation from a power plant, we need to definitely have an alternate market. And definitely if we have an alternate market which is willing to pay a price for, let's say, peaking power, then why can't we scale up our generation? Why can't we scale up our installation?
So that what you're saying is that really the notion of an alternate market is a transition bridge to when the demand begins to pick up. And unless you have the transition bridge, do you agree? Is that how you see?
Yeah, basically that's true, that we need a market. But another point that you raised was the load forecast. The load forecast that we are having right now is quite conservative. But even if we have large, very high load forecast, like Professor Herman is on setting, we have a policy-driven scenario, and then we'll have in 2020 instead of 2,000 megawatt as we take now, it will be 4,000 megawatt. But what I'm saying is that fine, we have 4,000 megawatt, we'll have a capacity to meet the 4,000 megawatt for 3 hours. But what about the 21 hours? We'll be having excess energy, and the rivers will not stop for 21 hours. We have to have reservoirs. So that comes down to what? The cost of energy from a reservoir versus a river. So, and then I again want to stress the first point that I raised last time, the preponderance of private sector. That really changes the issue. If it's just government, then government would have developed reservoir projects without thinking about the cost to the economy. Maybe they would, but when it's private sector, they are conscious of the cost, and you have to sell that power, and what is the readiness to pay. So it all boils down to, you must have competitive price of energy, and that comes when you have mix, and you build run of river, or maybe taking out of river, and get the cheaper energy for the rest of the time.
So you're saying basically that we think of not necessarily two separate markets, but really as a portfolio. Whenever you have some type of capacity here,
so the optimization of not only our national optimization, but regional optimization.
Regional
system. India also benefits from our power. Their specific energy cost also goes down.
Right.
Not only ours.
But let me, I think this point is often very heavily politicized, and I want to pick up on a point that you made about, the interference of politics, I guess, which we can't really get away with. Unfortunately, we have democracies in both the countries. And the other point which you said is a notion of distrust. And I want to pick up on the arguments that the other two gentlemen have made, which is that, look, we see, demand in Nepal is small today, but it's going to grow, and so we need India as like a transitional bridge to when a demand will come on the system, etc., or as a larger system portfolio. I think the politics of that conversation here is that nobody trusts India. Nobody trusts India. Everybody thinks that they're going to monopolize, and even so, what happens in that context of fear and distrust, as you said, is that even the smallest word in an agreement is like exploding, and it doesn't. So, from your perspective, as you look at it, from India's point of view, and then also as somebody who knows this area, Nepal, very well, what really is at the heart of this distrust? And is there something we can do to minimize the indulgence of politics in this issue?
One factor which comes to my mind for this level of distrust or trust deficit, whatever you call it, is because today Nepal is heavily dependent on India because of the geographical location. You have whatever you get from outside, you get through India. Right. The ships come to Calcutta, and from there you get to Nepal. Also, there may be a fear, and as I said, I wish I am wrong. There may be fear that sometimes if India tries to arm twist, which has, I don't think that has happened yet, then it may cause some damage to the Nepalese economy because you are heavily dependent on the Indian. Because of the geographical location, as I said, that everything comes through India. And but once you have this cooperation in the hydropower sector, once you start working together, and that is what my wish has been for the last 12, 14, 13 years that I have been coming here, that let us begin somewhere and let us see how we behave with each other. Now, we have been thinking, we have this sense of insecurity, sense of fear. On the Indian side, sometimes people say, look, if we get power from Nepal, our grid security may be affected. Our grid security may be affected because the power from Nepal will be very unreliable, and then sometimes it can cause some problem to the grid security. I said you don't have to, you can find a technical solution around this. I mean, it's only a kind of fear which is not insoluble. You can find a solution for this and you can get out. So, idea is that once you start working under a framework which both countries agree, you start working together on one project, on two projects, one PTA, two PTA, and then see how we behave with each other. Now, let me tell you that even when you get to 20,000 megawatts of generation in Nepal, as very rightly has been said by Mr. Shakya and Dr. Shah, that you have to depend on some other source for power because of the dry season, when you have to get. Secondly, you have to depend for base load or somewhere. Now, India has large thermal power plants, and therefore, during that base load hours and also for the dry season, you can get power from India and then give back power to India during the wet season, so that you are neutral. And you may make more money, but at least you are neutral. The price would be different, but if you have a long-term arrangement, then that price variation can be taken care of. So what I would suggest that for any project, and this is what I have been suggesting in India when I was in PTC or when I was outside here, that you should have long-term PPA for, let's say, 70-80% of your generation capacity. That's how I have worked out. And once you have that, then your economics gets taken care of, in the sense your return on equity, your debt servicing, all these things get taken care of. 20 to 30% you can leave for the market, and there if the market gives you higher price, you get higher price. Sometimes the price in the market will be low and you have to be content with the low price, but at least you are not worse off. So but in that manner you can make more money. Whereas when you have a thermal power, from thermal power project for agreement for the base load supply, that will be more or less on a fixed price basis. Fixed price means I'm not saying that fixed for the entire duration of the PPA, but there will not be seasonal variations, or there will not be market fluctuations affecting this. And so therefore, if you can pay for the thermal power that you are buying from India, get money from India for the hydropower, and then grow and prosper. And I am sure that you will have more power to pump into India than you draw from India over the years.
But let me ask you a follow-up question on this, because I guess, as I look across the Indian power sector too, there is a large amount of hydro potential, and that argument could be made for Northeast, it could be made for North India. What's so unique about Nepal's terrain and the politics and the messiness of inter-country politics and agreements, etc., that the two countries should be meddling around, just get on with their shows? I mean, India has over 160,000 megawatts of supposed potential.
This is for any country. I'm going on a larger thing, that for any country, it's always important to have good relations with neighbors. And as long as you have good relations with neighbors, you have much less problems than when you don't have good relations with neighbors. So it is in India's interest, and that's what our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been suggesting and has taken initiatives to improve relationship with neighbors, because we realize that one has to have that. So once you work together, I think the relationship will grow stronger. We already have very good relationship between India and Nepal, but that will grow stronger. Now coming to hydro potential in India, I have myself said that there is all Himalayan states in India have similar hydro potential that Nepal and Bhutan have. But wherever hydro potential is developed, from wherever, whether it comes from Arunachal Pradesh, it comes from Sikkim, or it comes from Nepal and Bhutan, it's welcome in India. After all, you get energy, and this region has energy deficit. So from wherever energy comes, it's welcome, and from wherever we can get. So it will be in the mutual benefit of both the countries. It will improve relationships, and I am 100% sure that if we start working on this, the trust deficit will also come down. Unfortunately, we have not worked together in this area, and that's why the trust deficit has been born. Also, as I said, there is too much of politics in both the countries, so that also creates some problems. But leave aside politics now, because we are professionals and we are discussing on the
very non-political subject.
So leave aside that. So therefore, let's begin somewhere. My whole purpose was, whenever I came, I would say that let's begin from somewhere, and that prompted me to sign the power purchase agreement between NEA and PTC for supply of 150 megawatts, and which can be enhanced to 300 megawatts. And mind you, that is what enabled financing of the transmission link. If that PPA was not there, the transmission link would not have been financed. The Muzaffarpur-Ghaziabad transmission line.
So I guess the issue is just, let's just do it. Go on, yeah, please.
That issue the question was, India has 6,000 megawatt potential, and we are breaking this Nepal. I think it's a question of the low-hanging fruits, picking up the low-hanging fruits first, and optimization. So there are 6,000 megawatts, some are low, some are high, and in Nepal also some are low, some are high. That's why no wonder Upper Nanali, Winter, and Roshangi, the low-hanging fruits, are where India is listed right now. So they will be picked up first, and slowly it will go up. So I think India is not interested here for a charity purpose. India is interested here for her own interests, and they will, of course, it will replace her third power in the export.
So is that why you lost all your hair, like without going after the low-hanging fruit? Sorry.
Just one small comment. When I joined civil services and I was a professional, we were told while talking about foreign policy that every country has its national interest in mind in regard to foreign policy. So if India says that it will buy power and give you give you price, or India gives aid, it is not only out of love for Nepal. It's in the national interest of India and Nepal both. So it's always we work on the basis of national interest.
So if I summarize, this part of the conversation, the basic idea is there's an immense opportunity between the two countries, both because of the differences in the system, the differences in the sectors almost, the availability of low-hanging fruit. But what is the obstacles is that certain kinds of distrust, whatever they are, and so that really provides the opportunity. But I want to stop and see if there are any more questions. If there's any questions here, I guess not. But let me then move, I guess, to the next part of the conversation, which is that okay, we understand that there's a need. But all that said, power is still flowing across from India and Nepal. Some of the plants that you mentioned are still being built, right? And they're intending to export to India. So why are we so hung up on the importance of the PTA? What does PTA do for us that it didn't do before? You start.
I think this is a fear of, my partner is on power decision now. You should come on, you can participate in it makes sense. Nothing is stopping what you have. And also, can they export import power from India, from Bihar or from Annapurna? There's no regulations that is stopping you. That's what they are saying. And we believe also that it is possible. But I think the fear is that in the middle of The rules may change. That's the thing. And I think if you go back to history, a little bit historical insight, I don't know, let me speak it out. We have good trade agreement and free flow of goods from India from third country Nepal. So in 1989, the trade agreement expired and the government relation at that particular time was not good. We had a problem. And you know, very well. That was such a large mistrust that we still had. That rich picture of whatever was still there till our Prime Minister came and spoke in the parliament, and we have a lot of that now pretty different. Very good.
Yeah, so we don't really need a PTA, we just need the Prime Minister to come here and give a
The communication, the trust of that, the rules will not change.
The institutionalization of that.
The two rupees import license, so import value, this will be removed for the time being, and then come back later on. So if you have an agreement, then it is binding for both the governments.
But let me ask Mr. Thakur, he led a very large public limited company, which obviously is very accountable to his many shareholders, and he signed a 150 megawatt deal with Nepal, the power is flowing, and he didn't ask for a PTA. What gave you the security that you could do that deal without jeopardizing or risking your potential investors in the company?
Well, we secure when it comes to financing of the company or the project, you have to have what is called the federal security and also the security for implementing the contract that you are signing. So you have to have both. So if there is a default of the contractor, then there is a ways of getting around it. Similarly, if there is the payment problem, then there are ways of getting around it. And we incorporated all that into the PTA. So there was no issue on that. There was no issue on that. And we also thought, as I said already, we also thought that by supplying this 150 megawatt, we will be able to give that power to Nepal, and in turn, we will get power from Nepal during the wet season. Now there was a very strong argument coming from NEA, and maybe you are aware of that what happens, because our agreement was for supply of 150 megawatt around the year, 12 months a year, and around the clock. Right. So what happens when Nepal doesn't give that power? Then maybe PTC will still be insisting that we take this power and give to us. So I volunteered and I said that we will buy back this power whenever you are in surplus. And that was also incorporated in the agreement. We have never done it in India. Mind you, for no Indian project, for no Indian PPA, we have done this kind of a arrangement where we are obliged to buy back power when you don't need it. In case of Nepal, we made that exception because we appreciated that during wet season you may not need this power and you may be suffering from that fear which we have already talked about, the sense of mistrust or distrust, whatever you call it. That's what happens in wet season if India refuses to buy power, and you may surplus and because you will ask for that money. So therefore we still will buy back, and that was incorporated in the agreement. The short point I'm making is that I agree with it that we need a kind of umbrella agreement for demonstrating the larger commitment of the government on the two sides. That the governments are committed, therefore through government the people are committed that there will be power trade between India and Nepal without any hurdles. So for that you need this kind of umbrella agreement between India and Nepal. But as Mr. Shakya already has said, that even today the trade is taking place without this agreement. But you don't have that sense of security without this agreement that this will continue to be so. And that is why this agreement is required.
Yeah, so okay. The agreement gives us a sense of additional security that private investments will be protected. So let me ask you, if you were considering a big investment in cross-border trade, whether it's a transmission line, acquisition of a plant, whatever, what would you want in that agreement that is not already covered in agreements in the two countries? So what do you require to take to your investment committee and say, look, as far as we are concerned, from a reasonable point of view, the risks of trade between the two countries are protected?
I think the bill required a couple of things, basic principle issues to be incorporated in our trade agreement, which would provide us the sufficient level of comfort for doing this business. First is open and non-discriminatory access to each other's markets, right? So I'm speaking on behalf of both of these possibilities here. For us, it's very important here from being in Nepal, we need to have...
Can I just pause there? Because I think those are very important points. Can you just, for the benefit of those listening, explain that a bit more? Open and non-discriminatory access.
Right. I think it's simply, if I can put it, it's basically we should be allowed to participate in the Indian electricity market, not only the exchange but also the non markets, as any other Indian hydropower developer. That's the basic premise that we would like to have in this whole context. So that we can participate in the exchanges, we can participate in the various price bidding mechanisms that the Regulatory Commission in India has been incorporating. We just want to have a level playing field with the Indian hydropower developers. So that yes, we will definitely have to be competitive, and we are willing to do that. We will be competitive, and we will be we would like to access the market on equal terms, equal footing. The other thing that is very important is to have a framework agreement which provides a stable regulatory framework, so that there are no surprises at later date. Even now, when I use the word non-discriminatory, there is a possibility of reintroducing this import duty or import license in the absence of umbrella power trade agreement. We were, basically advocating to get that removed because that was a trade barrier. 2 rupees per kilowatt hour for supplying to market, which is going to pay 3.5 rupees was a non-issue. That now because it would have flown in that case. So stable regulatory framework.